Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome to Duality 7X. Welcome. I'm your host Shiraz. And welcome to Nate Diaz because Nate Diaz is officially back in MMA. Not the UFC, but Nate Diaz is back in MMA, guys. I want to talk a little bit about this, guys. If you guys are new to the channel, please smash a like and subscribe and hit the notification so you guys never miss a beat. Now, Nate Diaz just signed with Jake Paul's MVP Promotions to fight Mike Perry. And this is all going down, guys. Nate Diaz is gonna be on the undercard of the Ronda Rousey Gina Carano fight that's happening here. And again, this is all part of Jake Paul's MVP Promotions. And the bigger story here that a lot of people are talking about is this might actually change how fighters think about leaving the UFC and life after the UFC, because I don't think this is a comeback fight. This might actually be the start of something really big. And let's do a deep dive into this, guys. Let's try to figure out exactly what's going on, because this is something that I'm sure is going to pique your interest. You're not going to want to miss this, guys. Now, on the surface, this looks like a fun fight between probably two of the wildest fighters in the sport. When you start kind of digging deeper into it, this kind of seems like a move that might actually signal a new power shift happening outside of the realm of the UFC, right? And there's one major detail about this deal that Nate Diaz signed with Jake Paul's MVP Promotions that a lot of people are not talking about yet. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute, guys. But Nate Diaz is leaving the UFC. All right? Just think about that for a second. Let it just sit in. I mean, the last time we saw Nate Diaz in MMA, right, was like 2022 when he submitted Tony Ferguson at UFC 279. I mean, that fight closed out his UFC contract altogether. After that, Diaz did something that most fighters don't really have the freedom to do. He left. He left on his own terms. No contract extension, no negotiations. He walked away from the biggest MMA promotion in the world. And almost immediately after that, he crossed over into boxing territory by fighting Jake Paul. I mean, he lost that fight against Jake by unanimous decision, but the event still did massive numbers. And I mean, I think a lot of people were under the consensus that Nate Diaz was probably going to knock out Jake Paul, but he lost that fight, guys. And the reason why things get really interesting now, because you got a guy who has been flirting with wanting to come back, probably one of UFC's biggest stars. And I mean, he did. He had some unbelievable fights, guys. He's definitely a name, like both the Diaz brothers. You think about Nate, you think about Nick, for all that they've done in the UFC, for what they've been able to contribute to the sport of MMA. It's surreal, right? I mean, and then he crossed over. He fought Jake Paul. And then ever since then, he's been kind of flirting about the idea of wanting to come back into MMA, wanting to potentially come back into the UFC. But now things are a little different, because he just signed on with Jake Paul's company, and he's fighting a guy who honestly is, just as chaotic as him. And when you think about Nate Diaz and Jake Paul actually linking up together and actually doing business together, these guys are two former opponents who are now business partners. All right? So anyways, guys, he's going to return to the Octagon, to MMA, on May 16th at the Intuit Dome. All right? The fight's going to headline the most valuable promotion's first MMA event, guys, and the opponent, Mike Platinum Perry. I just alluded to the fact that Mike is just as chaotic as Nate. Both of these guys basically built their reputations on pure, unadulterated, sheer chaos. These guys are brutal. These guys are known for pushing the pace, guys. They like talking trash. They like controversy, and they never back down from a fight. They never back down from a fight. So honestly, I think that this fight sells itself. I mean, the real headline uh, essentially may not even be the fight itself. It's where the fight is happening, because the event is going to be streaming live on Netflix. The story has evolved. It's changing because it's becoming bigger than Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry itself. You got Jake Paul's promotion company entering the world of MMA. You've got Nate Diaz, probably one of the most recognizable UFC stars, ever to get into the octagon. And you've got Francis Ngannou. You've got Ronda Rousey. I mean, they're all connected to this project, guys. And now the event is streaming on Netflix, probably one of the biggest platforms in the world. And when I talk about this, is not just another fight card. This is a direct challenge to the UFC's monopoly on star power, right? So to be clear, the UFC is still the king of MMA, all right? And for the first time in a long time, guys, we're seeing multiple major names working outside that system, outside the folds of the UFC. And Nate Diaz seems to be aware of what this moment actually represents, because he's super excited. He can't wait to get into the octagon against Mike Perry. And again, like I said, I mean, you got Ronda Rousey, you got Gina Carano, you've got Francis Ngannou. Jake Paul is yielding his wand, and he's stirring up some magic, and he's starting to create a lot of buzz and a lot of excitement, like nobody but Jake Paul knows how to do, right? And so Nate Diaz came out, and he essentially talked about the brand, talked about him returning to MMA, and especially teaming up with Jake Paul with MVP Promotions. And essentially what he said is he's glad to be back in action. It's time. Don't forget where all of this came from. I've got plans to do a lot more over the next 10 years. Time to set that bar again, get ready for a new takeover. I mean, that to me sounds like it's classic Nate Diaz talk. But if you read between the lines, guys, there's something interesting, something more interesting that's happening behind the scenes here. And it's not just about this fight, guys. It's about talking about building something outside of the UFC ecosystem that has been nothing but successful for decades. So a lot of people have tried. A lot of people have tried to replicate the business. I mean, you have different organizations, competing organizations that are out there in the world of MMA. It's not just the UFC. You've got PFL. You've got One Championship. I mean, there's a lot of different organizations out there, but nobody is as big as the UFC. But Jake Paul has got money. He's got brand influence. He's got a lot of big, powerful friends in networks. And with the backing of Netflix, he might actually put a dent, or more than a dent, in this new world that he's venturing into. So there's going to be some long-term implications, obviously, that are starting to come into play. The fact that these guys are doing their own thing, it's going to draw a big crowd. A lot of people are going to tune into it, and that's what's going to keep Netflix happy, the execs at Netflix happy. But at the same time, I think guys like Jake Paul and his business partners are going to be super stoked as well too, because this is going to give them the opportunity to continue to do the things that they want to do, not only in the sport of boxing that they've been doing all this time, but now they get to venture into a whole new territory, a territory that's untapped. Really, there's one major big player that dominates the entire ecosystem, and then you got all these other little companies that are underneath him. But guess what? Jake Paul's here, and he wants to make it known that he can pull off a very, very good card himself, right? So the real question, I think, is what happens if Jake Paul's event actually succeeds? What happens if Nate Diaz and Mike Perry blow the roof off the Intuit Dome, and if they end up if they end up contributing to big numbers on Netflix, right? Because if that happens, guys, a lot of fighters might actually start looking at the UFC contract system very differently. I mean, you just heard recently with Jon Jones wanting to leave the UFC because he's still under contract to the UFC. Jon Jones is very upset that he wasn't put on the UFC Freedom 250 White House card, and there was a lot of speculation and rumors swirling about Jon Jones fighting Alex Pereira, but now that's not going to happen. So Jon Jones was like, well, then release me from my contract from the UFC so he could go on to do other things, but it doesn't look like the UFC is going to release him. I don't know. That's a whole different story in itself. But let's talk about Mike Perry here for a brief second, guys, because on the other side of the fight, on the other side of Nate Diaz, you got Mike Perry who's going to be staring him down on the other side of the octagon. So Perry, as usual, he didn't hold back. He said, the king of violence returns to MMA to elbow his opponent in the face. Nate Diaz is going to go lights out. So that's pure Mike Perry energy. That's what he's known for, guys. He brings pure chaos and energy everywhere he goes. He definitely controversy follows him like it follows Nate Diaz. But what makes Perry so dangerous in this matchup is his style, his aggression, the type. I mean, this is the kind of fight he thrives on, and it's also the kind of fight that Nate Diaz likes as well, because Nate Diaz, like Mike Perry, they're very forward pressure type athletes. They like to mix it up, then they pull back, and they just, and sometimes you just get a little bit of messiness. It's a little bit unorderly, but that's the way these guys thrive. That's the way these guys like it. And this could honestly, if these guys, with what I'm thinking, these guys could easily fight all the way into 5 rounds, right? I mean, honestly, guys, this might actually be what the promotion actually needs, because we're not talking about rankings here. We're not talking about brand awareness. We're just talking about 2 guys who love to fight, and they're very well known, especially Nate Diaz. He brings a huge star following, and a lot of people are going to tune into watching these guys fight, right? So really, it comes down to the entertainment value. But again, the bigger story is the business side of things, because Jake Paul's most valuable promotions is slowly building a roster of recognizable names, guys, that are legitimate, right? So they're securing major streaming deals, and now they're entering into the MMA market. Dana's probably not pleased about that. But if they can prove there's real demand for big name fights outside of the folds of UFC, then it changes negotiation leverage for fighters right across the entire sport. Because suddenly now fighters have something they rarely had before, which is options. So when fighters have options, guys, promoters have competition, and when promoters have competition, all hell breaks loose, guys. This is why Nate Diaz, Mike Perry actually makes perfect sense. Neither guy is chasing a belt right now. They don't give a damn about belts. What they care about is getting into the octagon and putting on their best performance and walking out with the W. They're chasing big fights, big paydays. Both guys are action fighters. I expect nothing but action in this fight, and both have massive, massive fan followings, guys, and they know how to sell a fight. This matchup makes perfect sense. Kudos to Jake Paul, his team, Nakisa Bidarian, and all the guys that are behind putting this event together. Because honestly, guys, it's really hard for a promotion to launch an MMA brand. But when you have recognizable talent like you do, like how Jake Paul does on his card and on his roster, they're not going to have any issues. I don't think so, right? So, I mean, for years, fighters have been leaving the UFC, and then really there's nothing for them to go to, right? Maybe bare knuckle boxing, maybe other smaller kind of outfits and organizations. But this could give them an opportunity to go from one major player to another major player. So I wouldn't be surprised if guys like Andrei Arlovsky and maybe even Tony Ferguson and might want to reach out to Jake Paul, or Jake Paul's reaching out to them about the possibility of doing some collab with them. And maybe even Eddie Hearn might enter the picture. And if he could work with Jake Paul, Wow, because Tom Aspinall signed with Matchroom Boxing. This is going to be very, very interesting, guys. So look, Francis Ngannou did it, right? Nate Diaz is doing it. And if the Netflix card works, guys, a lot more fighters are going to follow. So now I want to hear from you guys. Do you think this fight is a good fight? Do you think this is what you want to see? Is this something that you'll go and see? Do you think promotions like Jake Paul's MVP can realistically compete with big players like Dana White's UFC in the future? I want to hear from you guys. Honestly, I think this is huge, absolutely unbelievable news. I mean, it's all going down, guys. May 16th at the Intuit Dome. I can't wait for this fight, honestly, guys. It's going to be absolutely incredible. Look, if you enjoyed this breakdown, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay locked in for more exciting content from Duality 7X. Thank you again for joining us. The pleasure was all mine. I look forward to seeing you guys in tomorrow's video.